What up, random rockers? Back here again for 2017, like I had said in my previous video. And if you hadn't noticed, AFI's The Blood Album is my first to be reviewed. I'm hoping to do Split movie sometime later. Might show up at least on YouTube on the weekend. I'm not sure I'll upload it on Facebook till later. We'll see how that goes with that. But other than that, guys, this is going to be kind of a shorter review because there's not much for me to talk about with this album. Or at least that I feel, if anything, I will say, despite its weak singles, there are some interesting deep cuts in here. So Beneath You's kind of interesting. It's somewhat punky, somewhat reminiscent of their hard punk stuff that, you know, most people could tolerate. Some people didn't care for it, I guess, since they sounded too much like the Misfits. But I didn't mind, I didn't mind that. You know, it sounded pretty good to me. And you can tell they needed to switch it up after a while. And that full transition came in with the album that most people will call a masterpiece, at least amongst AFI's own fan base. And that would be Sing for Sorrow. Especially the singles coming off of that are far more memorable than most of the ones they've come out with post Miss Murder, I guess. And albums wise, a lot of people didn't care for December Underground or Crash Love. I was okay. December Underground was okay. Crash Love was somewhat interesting, definitely more poppier direction. Then they went back to a darker direction with Burials, more in the veins of both December Underground and Sing for Sorrow. I wouldn't say, though, 17 Crimes, I think that was the single. The one that says Kill Like 17 or some stupid crap. That one kind of annoyed me after a while when I first heard it. And I think they'd used that to promote some Twilight-ish movie, I think, which was Mortal Instruments, City of Bones or something, before they decided to do it on Freeform, I think, for a TV series or something. And that was just... I never even bothered to watch a TV series. I mean, the movie was okay. But regardless of that, that track didn't... It's the only song I knew off of Burials, and that came off of Burials, and since I knew very little of what that album had to offer compared to the previous ones. And then this album I heard of White Offerings, and I kind of liked White Offerings. I mean, it may not have been much of anything different from what we've already come to expect from AFI over the years, and they kind of seem to have, ever since Sing for Sorrow, they've sort of repeated themselves a little bit here and there. Maybe occasionally might have done a scream here and there, or maybe brought in some electronics since December Underground, more so or less. But occasionally they'll have a decent, tasty solo or lick here and there, which on this album I felt like Get Hurt was a nice, well-composed solo, as opposed to like Medicate from Crash Love. There's a lot of other... some songs are interesting. I think some of my honest favorites are mostly the tracks, the Snowcats, the slightly gay in its lyrical content. That you'd think that make me question that, just in my own thing, but honestly, thank God for that, because I didn't care for AFI all that much. For good reason, I guess, in that regard. But nothing against gays. I have a friend who turned out he's gay, and he's apparently going to get married. He's living in Vegas. Shout out to you, buddy. It's been a while since we talked. Cody Freeman. Yes, I name dropped, so what? But yeah. And of course I have, my girlfriend has an uncle who's gay too, so that, whatever floats your boat. Just I'm straight, and don't make me change that. If I didn't do that, thank goodness. Regardless, White Offerings was a good track. Was probably the heavier of the singles, I guess you would say. Even though the heavier sounding track to me was So Beneath You, especially given the lyrical content. There's been hearing a lot of other critics saying that it's saying it's pretty well in the meh, or it's okay, it's alright. It's not. Some are saying maybe bad, but I don't think it's that bad. I can see how some people still have an appeal for AFI. I kind of understand it. I mean, I will say Scene for Sorrow is definitely their best effort they've ever done. I'd almost want to put Crash Love up as a second, because at least it was trying to be a little different in tone, because it was a lot lighter, brighter, poppier sort of tone they were going for. I mean, even the album cover stated that as just as much. Burials definitely went back into a darker territory, just like December Underground and Sing for Sorrow had been. And then with this album, I feel like they just kind of mishmashed a little bit of what they did in the past, but didn't pass in terms of their own discography. Not so much the side projects that Jade and Davey have been doing, such as Black Audio and Extremis, which were definitely some interesting stuff from what I've heard about it, but nothing much to talk about, really. I mean, mostly because I'm not too into electronic music, and I'm definitely not much going to be an advocate for black metal, despite the fact that I could tolerate something like blackened shoegaze, specifically that of Death Heaven's Sunbather, which, if you are into that, wanting a more atmospheric sort of black metal kind of thing, that's hopefully less Satan worshipy than most of them, then I guess this would be for you. And that's what I have to say with that. And to be fair, this album, it's kind of a thumbs up and kind of a mixed mosh here thing. It's basically in other words, I give it a sort of a mixed to positive sort of review for this album. It's definitely not their best. I can't say it's their worst. It's hard to really pinpoint what their worst actually is, given that I haven't really fully deep dived into their discography properly. Though I probably didn't care too much for December Underground. So if it was, though, a little poppier, it worked, I guess, for that album. Like I said, with Get Hurt was one of the singles, I guess, and that one at least had a better solo than the one on Medicaid from Crash Love. Aurelia is okay. I mean, So Beneath You is a little bit of a Protheus thing that I don't care for. The Snowcats was probably the best song I think I did hear on there, or at least one of the more interesting ones. Besides that, of the more heavier White Offerings, in terms of the singles that were on this album. But other than the singles themselves, and maybe So Beneath You, there really isn't much I can offer about this album. And apparently this is actually the first album in which the guitarist Jade Puget, forgive me if I'm butchering your last name, dude, has produced specifically for an AFI album. And I guess in a way it kind of shows, but nothing in a way that kind of catches my ear. It still kind of feels like everything they've done since Scene for Sorrows kind of just moshed itself in to each other together, unless they were like big singles or something. Then I can easily pinpoint them out. That's the thing about them. They usually have good singles games, promotional game when it comes to just promoting their albums, and at least letting you know there's something that will stick within your head. At least, even if the entire album itself doesn't. Then it's a shame this album doesn't necessarily have that. I can't say it's necessarily forgettable, but it's not terrible, necessarily. And like I said, overall, it's thumbs up, kind of mixed mosh here. But I'd say just give it a shot. There are definitely, I think, people who will like this. Not a whole lot will. I didn't care for it too much. I mean, I don't hate it. I know, but I can acknowledge that it's not like bad, but I can acknowledge for sure that it's not necessarily great either. Fairly close to good. I would say more of a okay, all right, meh kind of album. But if you're into AFI and it'll be enough to hold you over, hopefully hold you over until they finally decide to release something better. Unless they decide to somehow call it quits sometime after this, then that's just going to kind of be a little bit of a bitter. Then for this to be a swan song, it'd be kind of sad. Don't know. Apparently there's some other project they're working on, and maybe after that another AFI album might come out. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I do maybe need to check out some of their side project stuff between Davey and Jade, but I don't know. We'll see how it happens with that. I'm too busy with other albums that have caught my eye anyway this January. Music-wise, usually January seems to make up for the lack of good movies. And that definitely shows up in this particular, and this album is one of the meh things about January. However, I will say, for random recommendations, I will tell you Code Orange Forever, most definitely, and the Passing Light of Day from Pain of Salvation. And yeah, those are pretty good. Metal, hardcore punk to metalcore band, and progressive metal. Not really. I'm not sure pioneers or legends in their own right, respectively, I guess, between the two bands, of course. And that's all I can say. I might talk about those albums more. If not, then check those albums out. I might mention something in the comments or in the description below. But for AFI's Blood album, what did you guys think? Comment below. If you like this video, smash or rock that like button with thrust if you must. And as always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. Until hopefully whenever I upload Split, I'll see you next time.